because dancing's been very, very kind to me. So I like to give back to other people and do what I can do to help make it better. But I really do love the changes in my life. That's all I care about. Make it better. Make Arthur Murray better. Make dancing better. That's for me. I would go to my death a happy man.
Before we start our lovely dance talk, let me kind of introduce who we have today, because we're all a little bit nervous. So besides amazing dance titles, you were Australian champion, I think British champion, I don't know how many times titled in the United States, but you also were, as currently right now, president of Arthur Murray organization, president of American Ballroom Company, president of World Federation of Ballroom Dance, chairman of WDC. I mean, there's so many president titles in there. It's insane. How do you do it all?
Some of them are still current, some are, of course. I mean, I was the president of American Ballroom Company for probably 15 years. But it's just, you love dancing. I mean, and so honored to be ever made the president of the Arthur Murray organization, of which I've been a part now for since 1976. So what's that? 44 years I've been involved with the Arthur Murray organization. It's a long time, and worked at the head office since 1983. So before that, I had some studios in Chicago, and but I love dancing. So
awesome. Where are you right now? This has a very beautiful interior there, like with the blue.
Right now in the Arthur Murray studio in Coral Gables, which has been in this location actually for over 60 years.
Oh,
wow. I remember, I think I've visited you there once, and you had this beautiful chair in the corner.
That's been that was the redo. But Babette, I remember you and Dimitri visited with me in the head office as well.
Yes, we did. Mm-hmm.
Snow's been in the studio, I believe.
Yes, I have. Yes.
I don't think Elena has. So
no,
so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was like, where are you? Because I've never seen this place and it looks gorgeous.
It's a lovely studio. It's a very nice studio, and it's been here for a few years, and more than a few years. But it's always been a great studio. Great owners.
John, so with the current situation and you being in the studio, are you actually teaching the pros live?
No, funny enough, Rudy and Katja are staying with me at the moment because they're going to get involved in the studio. So we do a mini lesson every night when they come home. So,
this is super nice. They are fantastic dancers, actually. We're hoping to have them on the show soon.
Yeah, people in the studios are starting to get back up and running now in various places where they're allowed to since the lockdown. So hopefully, who knows when things will get back to normal, if they ever will get back to normal. I don't think we can predict that yet, but let's hope. Right?
Well, I think we're getting a new normal, right? We're not only actually teaching in the studios, but we are capable to travel all around the countries. So it's expanded our business. It definitely did not stop our business. Don't you agree to that?
Oh, I think it's to be quite honest, it's hurt business quite a bit. I mean, I know that the studios, all studios, have suffered. It's tough. I mean, especially.
I think it suffered in a change in relocation, but I'm really hoping that now the students who travel, and we have a lot of them, successful people, that they don't have to stop in a period of traveling. They can actually still have lessons with the instructors over the virtual lessons.
Well, I think, the virtual lessons are good. I don't think it's quite the same, but you think though, as a profession, I don't like an industry. I think it's a profession, but the dance profession relies on competitions and showcases and events, medal balls, studio showcases, studio team matches. We rely on that, and when we can't have that, it's definitely going to put a crimp into the success of our business. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to that. I mean, Tommy and Pam are running the first competition this weekend in Orlando. It's a one day, but they're going to go ahead with it. And then I think next week, Carlos Pabon and Marielle, his wife, they're going to go ahead with their competition in Cleveland, the North Coast. So I wish them great success. hopefully it'll be a good opening up for the whole country and the world.
Right.
Nothing's happened
Yeah.
since March.
I'd be very curious how many people actually, as of right now, would go and participate in the competition, because people are sitting at home and like itching to get out, but at the same time, some people are still scared to go into big public. So, but I'd just be very curious how many entries would they get for this first time.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they get. I mean, we had to cancel the Arthur Murray Dance Rama in New Orleans, which was going to be very, very big. I mean, it was scheduled to be the first weekend, right after Provo, actually, and it was scheduled for that week, and we had like 16,000 entries for a World Dance Rama, which was huge. But I mean, there was no choice but to not run it. I mean, couldn't do it. But I mean, let's hope we get back up and running. But I think we've all got to remember history a little bit. I can remember the first time that a competition got 5,000 entries, and that was the Ohio Star Ball, Sam.
And it was huge.
Remember all of us saying, you know, go probably 87, 88, maybe even 89. All of us going to, holy cow, how are we going to do 5,000 entries? But credit to Sam, I mean, he handled it beautifully, and it was basically a cinch. But, you know, you think now some competitions have had nearly 20,000 entries.
Yeah.
And it goes off comfortably. And I think the company, you know, Arthur Murray International and the studios have been quite good pioneers in doing that. I can remember some of the things that Tom and I did to get through these numbers, but let's hope we get back there again as quickly as possible.
Since you're talking about Arthur Murray's, I would love to know, how did you get involved in it?
Oh, well, in my last interview with Our Good Stuff, I told everybody, I just won the British Amateur Championship, and Carol and I were splitting up, and I was going to come to America for a year and go back to England and start competing again, because I was only, 27, I think. And so I said to Bill and Bobby, who were very close to Arthur Murray's, the Urbins, and I said, well, I'm going to go to America for a year. And she said, well, you're going to Arthur Murray's. Go to pick Cleveland, Chicago, or Columbus, Ohio. And so I picked Chicago because it was the biggest city. But there was no choice. This is what I was going to do, because they were very closely associated with the Arthur Murray organization for so many years. When we first became the world champions in '63, for twice a year they'd come and visit the Arthur Murray Studios for 6 weeks in the International Dance Festival in the summer, and then the Tournament of Champions in the fall. So they had a very close relationship. They knew George Tice very well, and Phil Masters, and they were very close friends with Pat Trainwell. Pat used to organize all their visits. So they became great friends, and they did a lot of work for Arthur Murray. They did a lot of the syllabuses, some of which in international style we still use today.
Let me ask you, John, so when you made it first time to that Chicago Arthur Murray studio, did you start just like a regular teacher and have to learn all the songs?
I did. They had some very good students there who'd taken lessons, because people don't know necessarily the history of that studio, but it was a very venerable Arthur Murray studio as far as high-level dancing was concerned, because there was a gentleman there who started international called Todd Hunter. And then, of course, there was Vernon Brock and Beverly Donahue were in that studio, and they were very successful before Vern left and went to Fred Astaire, and Beverly went to independent. Beverly worked for Phil Masters at one time. And Larry and Betty Silvers worked in that studio. They also worked for Phil in Philadelphia at one time. And Tommy and Kay Patterson had come from England, and they taught in that studio. So all the teachers there were well trained, and the students were quite high level. Ladies were a little older, as was the norm then. But so that was my first. I had to teach the two best students in the studio. They were going to give me the approval or lack thereof, you know. But that was my. And then I wondered, well, what have I done? Should I turn around and go back right away? I thought, no, I'm going to stick this out. So that was that was my first day in the studio. I did 2 lessons in the evening.
I want to ask you a question. Blackpool Championship, forever, since it got organized, was only judged by British people. And you were the first international judge to judge Blackpool and represent United States at that point. How did that happen? Because that was a huge breakthrough in the history. We're like, yay, finally, international judges.
Well, it was 68 years between an international judge judging the British and myself and Rudy Trouts. We both judged at the same time. The last person to do it was a gentleman that none of you would remember, a fellow called Franz Büchler, who was an Austrian. That was in 1936, he judged the British. And until 2004, there were no one from overseas. But, you know, as you know, I was very close friends with Peter Maxwell, who was the chairman, and very close friends with Jill Mackenzie, who was the organizer at that time, or the competition organizer. And I had a deep association with Blackpool. Myself and Carol were the first non-English couple to ever win the amateur. So that was in 1976. So there's always been this thing. So I figure that's why I was asked. That, you know, they wanted to put some international people on the panel, and they thought about me and Rudy, who I think was. Rudy went back. I think, when did Rudy win the Latin? It's 1968, I think. Rudy Trouts won the Latin. So he was, of course, a finalist in the Pro Ballroom as well. So they chose us. I guess we were well-known dance people. And since then, there's been some international judges. It was a major breakthrough, I think, for everybody. And I was delighted to be one of the first ones. But I must say, it's a long week.
Oh, yeah.
I remember.
I can imagine.
By the Friday night, I was quite exhausted. And I mean, I think the first Friday night I was, you know, all proud of myself. But by the second Friday, the Pro Ballroom, I was pretty tired. I had to go and kind of lean up against the stage. I remember I was tired. And of course, that was also a very tough week because that's when Bobby died. So it was tough for all of us.
I can't imagine judging Blackpool. The biggest Blackpool I did, it was still amateurs, and it was like 400 couples, and they had to divide us to 200 couples for each half. Yeah. And then it literally was 20 heats or whatever that was. So basically, you waited an hour to do a next dance, which means judges would stand there for 5 hours. I can't imagine how you guys did it.
Well, the hardest one, because remember the afternoon panel does a lot of the really hard work, the ones who are on afternoon. The evening panel, I think, really got a little bit easier. But the hardest day at that time was Wednesday Pro Latin, because then you had to do it from the first round, and there were like 14, 15 heats. And you have to be very exact. They're very fussy. If you make a mistake, you hear about it. You got to get the right numbers down. So you have to keep your side sheet, because Marcus was also judging that year. Peter was the chairman. Marcus was a big help to me. He would do my side sheet for me. He was so good with. Marcus has always been so good with lists. So we had a perfect list. I'd have a red line when heat would end, so I'd know and carry over if I needed to carry over. Because I also pick up 3 times. So you don't have, they're picking up after several heats, you know. So you don't have that entire card all the time. But great memories, and I'm pleased to see so many other people from overseas have now had the opportunity, and as well with the introduction of the Pro-Am and the American style, it's going to get even more diverse than what it's ever been. And I give great credit to Michael Williams and to Sandra, and now Sandra's daughter Natalie. Always been superbly organized. Superb.
John, I wanted to turn back to the Arthur Murray's, because you've been president of so many things, and you're still currently Arthur Murray president. Why did you choose this company, besides that you start working for it? Why not like Fred Astaire or some independent or something else? Why this one?
Well, ironically that you say that, it was simply because of Bobby Urbin, and I knew that I was in a good organization, and I was very pleased to be in that organization, and I got to see how the organization ran. But I also became Because the first year I was here, because I knew a little bit about international dance politics, George Tice, who was the president at that time, suggested to me that I become the delegate for Arthur Murray for the National Dance Council. So that's how I first got to know everybody. And that's where I first met John Monty, who at that time was the National Dance Director of the Fred Astaire organization. And I think the whole focus of Fred Astaire. And John was such a wonderful man. And he was so very kind to me. And when I came to the head office and I was being basically the International Dance Director for Arthur Murray, the first thing John did was call me, said, "Can I come over and see you?" I said, "Of course, come over." So he came over to the office. Their office wasn't very far from ours. And I can still remember John's kind words. "Anything you want to know or how to do it, don't hesitate, ask me." There's always been a pretty close affinity. The Cazenaves, Mr. Charles and Mr. Chester, who were the principals of Fred Astaire that John worked for, they were always close friends of Mr. Tice and Mr. Costello and Mr. Masters. So the organizations really worked very harmoniously together for many, many years. So, but I just loved Arthur Murray. I love the people, but I'm quite sure that Fred Astaire is a fine organization too. I mean, I know many of the people at Fred Astaire and I've always liked them. I'll tell you a funny story one time that I hadn't told John, and I was going to New York and I was teaching Armando and Laura, who were Fred Astaire's, and they didn't know, I don't think they knew John was in town, and I certainly didn't know he was in New York. And he came into the studio, he saw me teaching, he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Helping the opposition. It's quite okay, isn't it?" And John said, "Of course it's okay." So we always had a lovely relationship. I love John very much.
What's amazing about you is like you have this memory of like a walking, I don't know, dance encyclopedia. It's like you know everybody by name, when you met them, and it's just this unique, I say, gift. Like I can remember
the first time I met all of you. I can vividly remember Michael danced at the USDC at the Fontainebleau. You were in the Open Rising Star, and you had streaks in your hair. You had dark hair with blonde. And I saw your beautiful legs, and I turned around. I think it was to Vince Bulger, and I said, "I hope this couple get in the final," and you did.
That was our first professional comp.
I saw Babette she was dancing with Warren, I think. It might have been then at Blackpool. And Snow, as a little girl, when you came over and you danced at Provo. And I remember you had a little black dress on with a white Peter Pan collar.
Correct. You have an amazing
I was speaking on the phone to Alan Fletcher, and I said, "I just saw this remarkable young girl who's so talented." And he said, "Is that Elena's sister, Snow?" And I said, "Yes, she's lovely." Of course, your sister I knew from teaching them.
Of course, yeah. Wow, you have an amazing memory. This is
like and your sister for a few years, actually.
You did. So detailed, huh? Streaks in your hair, my costume. That was years ago, John.
Like besides,
I think Babette was at Blackpool, and it might have been with Warren, or it might have been with your previous partner.
It could be either one. I mean, I was there when I was with my previous partner, I must have been an amateur because Blackpool is a professional. I definitely danced for Scotland with Warren.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew Warren's mother and dad quite well.
Yes. Yeah.
Lena, are you keeping us on time?
I am trying because I don't even know when we started.
It's just so interesting to me because I rarely find a persona who is involved and is inclusive to so many dancers, because usually we are, either we're in the highly competitive niche or we're in the very social niche, and you seem to be everywhere. And this is something that I'm kind of like respecting so much, a person who is able to cater to the top professionals and being able to coach and talk to and have the knowledge to talk to a top professional dancer and help them. And you're also able to help somebody who just wants to start off dancing and know what's best for them. So for me, this is just the epitome of knowledge there is. So that's what you have. This is why I'm just listening. I'm just very quiet today, very much in awe and very much listening, because there's just so much there.
A lucky boy, because I got this ability to learn, running a studio was I was always good at business, but running a studio, and we had some difficult times in Chicago as well. There was a lot of bad publicity one time in Chicago. So I had to learn from the good and the bad, and you learn, you know. But I've always enjoyed all aspects of dancing. I love social dancing. My forte's been in competition dancing, but I love social dancing because I know how good it is for everybody and how beneficial it is to people's lives. And the ladies and couples that I taught when I was in Chicago, I grew to love them and care for them very deeply. And they were good people.
But you have this ability to instantly connect with the person and understand what this person is about. So that makes you very special, I feel. Like this is why you're such a person who people naturally want to talk to you, because you can feel or have this experience to immediately grasp what that person needs. And then,
Thank you again, but I've always felt that it's my obligation to be open-minded, to be nice to everybody. I was trained that,
I mean, I personally
Especially
feel the same. So
when I was a competitor, I wasn't always so nice, I can tell you.
but we all learn. We all go through stages. We all learn. We all have experiences.
A fairly competitive person, but as I aged and matured, I realized that, hey, listen, you can only benefit yourself by being nice to people. So I've always
That's true. I agree.
Always
100%.
for everybody from all facets of the dance profession. You can ask all the Fred Astaire people for many years who was their best judge. It was always me. So I always figured I was very, very fair.
That's awesome. So since I'm a timekeeper for this episode, so John, we're gonna do this fun thing that we do with all of the guests. We call it quiz. There's gonna be 10 random questions, and we go fast. So no overthinking, no history. It's all about you. Whatever pops up into your head, just answer. You ready for it? Yes, you're gonna go.
All right, I'm gonna quiz you, John, today. It's my turn. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. The first question is: describe yourself in 3 words.
Oh my God, that's probably the description. Fair, humble, kind.
If you can't sleep at night, what do you do?
Remember old dance competitions and when I could play golf and try and think about my golf swing.
If you had a magic wand and you swing it, what would you change about yourself?
To have never stopped dancing and to become the professional champion.
What is the best advice you ever gotten?
Boy, that's a tough question because I got so much good advice over all the years. Best advice, learn to put yourself in position, don't try to put your partner.
That's nice.
That's a good one. If you had to play in a movie, who would be the character that you would like to play?
Lawrence of Arabia.
Now we know what your favorite movie is.
Well, Braveheart, I think, is my favorite movie, but I love the story about T.E. Lawrence.
What are you afraid of?
On Jeopardy last week, it was the final Jeopardy question, and the 3 contestants didn't know it.
That's great. What are you afraid of?
Oh, boy. Bit afraid of heights.
And you're always in the tall buildings.
Not in a building.
If you I'm going to skip some questions because, no, I'm going to ask you. How about I ask you this? What is your favorite body part?
Excuse her? Oh, that's too personal.
I had to put you in this position. We ask this everyone.
Well, I love women, so you can imagine.
One thing that people do that drives you absolutely crazy.
Arrogance on the dance floor. Lack of respect for your partner.
How do you structure your day? How do you structure your day? How do you cultivate your day?
I think about it the day before, the night before, and think about what I've got to achieve the next day. See if I can get it done. I'll review it when I'm finished the day. Always thought that way.
Bentley or Lamborghini?
Beg pardon?
Bentley or Lamborghini?
I couldn't understand you, Snow. I'm sorry.
If you had to drive or choose the car, Bentley or Lamborghini?
Bentley.
Nice.
Sammy
All the
Stockford
questions I'm going to ask you today.
Sammy Stockford has a Bentley, very beautiful one.
They are. John, if I had to just ask you one simple question, if you had to share something with our audience, what would be the advice you would give or thank you that you would say? I'm going to give you a moment and you could use this time to connect with people that are watching us.
We can move on.
That's an easy question for me to answer. Always be willing to work hard. And in whatever you do, practice, practice, practice. The same whether you're a new teacher, just learning to work with new students, practice, keep practicing. Only way you're going to get better. Same with my golf game. I used to practice a lot. I got to be quite a good golfer at one time. I haven't played in many years, but practice.
John, do you still play golf?
No, I haven't played in about 12 years. So, but I got to be pretty decent. I enjoyed it very much. I still love to watch it. So, some people find it a boring game, but I loved it. So, and company was great too, you know.
I loved it too. I like playing golf. My dad always said, "Oh no, you won't like it because you're much too bouncy for that." But I really enjoyed it.
Oh, it's a wonderful game. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, a lot of dancers love to play golf. I mean, of all the dancers, I think probably the best one now would probably be Igor Suvorov. But Armando Martin's got a very good game. And there used to be an old man that nobody remembers. He used to come to the USDC. He was quite old. He lived to be 99. And his name was Jack Drinkwater. And Jack was a very accomplished dancer back in the 30s. He was in the amateur final. But what a wonderful golfer he was. Right on to late in life. So golf's a good game for people. It's good socially. It's a lot like dancing. It's good for you.
It is a lot like dancing. It's a little competitive and a little dedicated and accuracy.
Yes. And one of my very dear friends for so many years in Arthur Murray, he had a lot to do with my life in Arthur Murray. Was Leslie Spirin's father, Harry. And Harry was a wonderful player. So good. Matter of fact, he used to say, John, if anyone's got a handicap higher than 24, they have no business playing golf. And if anyone's got a handicap lower than 5, they got no business. Because they're spending all their time practicing golf. But Harry was world class and a fabulous player. And from 50, 60 yards in, as good as any top pro. He could really play.
John, do you have any favorite quotes?
To meet Leslie and any favorite?
Yeah, sorry, we're internet connection. We just talked a little over each other. Do you have any favorite quotes that you like? What would be your favorite quote?
I'll tell you what I think is always the funniest story. You don't know these people, so it's tricky, but it's always intrigued me because G.K. Chesterton was a famous author in England back in the early 1900s, and he and George Bernard Shaw were great adversaries. Chesterton was a very strong Catholic and he was very fat. And Shaw was very lean and narrow, emaciated almost, and he was an atheist. And they met each other one time in the repartee, and this is always, repartee amazes me. So Chesterton says to Shaw, "Shaw, you look like there's been a famine in England, being so thin." So Shaw's response was, and this is the best response I think I've ever, "Yeah, and you look like you caused it." That's always been one of my favorite little stories. And I love the Churchill things and the things that Churchill believed in. And I think it's a lot about life. He was an amazing man, but there have been a lot of amazing men in life, haven't there, that we could all do well to emulate. I've always thought that Phil Masters has always given great advice, always. Very learned man, and he's been in the dance profession. I don't want to disclose his age, but Phil's been in the dance profession for a long, long time, and he knows everything about it. He knew Mr. Murray very closely. He worked closely with Mr. Murray, so some of Mr. Murray's stories are interesting stories, but Phil knows them all. It's only secondhand from me.
John, in the quiz, you said that you would love to still compete in everything. Is there anything you would have done differently in your dance career?
Carol and I made the 12 as amateurs occasionally, or 24, but I didn't feel I was ever very good at it. I think back and I think, well, I was always trying to take too big steps. And my Latin teacher was Nina Hart, who was a great teacher. But half the time I'd go in, I'd say, "Look at my waltz." So I would have loved to have been a great Latin dancer. And I like the little bit if I ever teach Latin, I like to teach it. I like it. And a few people I've given lessons to, strangely enough, really like Latin lessons from me, especially Billy Sparks and Shirley would tell you a story.
Actually, now that you mentioned students, who are your favorite students?
Say again, it didn't come out clearly.
And then you started talking about students, and I just was like, who's your like ultimate favorite student? Not the teacher, student.
Oh boy.
Well, now you're putting John on the spot. I thought I was.
over all these years, there used to be a student from Fred Astaire's in Euston when I first came here, who I thought was a lovely dancer. Her name was Lillian Davini, and so elegant. Not a young lady, but she could dance. She danced with a guy called Bill Ray, and she danced with Bob Grant. And I just thought she was a lovely dancer. So when I think back to all the students, and I think about her a lot, she was good. I thought Barbara Moore was a very good dancer when she competed. Beautiful girl to look at too, of course, but I always enjoyed watching her dance. Fran Nagel, who danced with Mark Rock, one of my favorites. Not the greatest dancer, but what a wonderful person who helped a lot of people in Detroit. And some of my own students from Chicago.
Awesome. Well, we're getting close to running out of the time, and we want to say a huge thank you for joining us. It's been such lovely to catch up with you. We didn't see you in forever since this whole pandemic started, but hopefully once the competitions pick up, we'll see you again. It's always lovely to talk to you.
Let's hope we can all see each other at Embassy. I'm hoping against hope that it'll still be on, but haven't spoken to Brian in a little while, but Steve Platt's Dancerama at the same hotel in Chelias had to be cancelled or postponed because the hotel's not open. So
right.
Well, let's hope for the best.
Well, thank you, ladies, very much. I enjoyed it immensely. You're all lovely, lovely, beautiful people, inside and out, and I've always enjoyed the pleasure of your company.
Oh,
Thank you so
much.
My best.
Good day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.